In the silence of deep space, where abandoned stations drift like forgotten ghosts, a young engineer uncovers a hidden chamber that was never meant to be found. And inside, chained in light for 300 years, waits a celestial griffin whose tears could shatter the lies of the galaxy. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The mining ring drifted in deep space, silent and forgotten, circling a dim star between galaxies. To the workers who lived there, it was just another station, another place to dig and refine resources. But to Nira Vale, the station's chief engineer, it had become something more. She had been hearing strange vibrations through the metal walls for weeks. It was not the usual hum of reactors or the steady beat of mining drills. It felt alive, like a hidden heartbeat inside the hull. Nira pressed her gloved hand against the corridor wall, listening with her whole body. She was 27 years old, skilled and respected as one of the best engineers in the Outer Rim. She had fixed ships, repaired reactors, and solved problems that left others defeated. Yet this mystery was different. It bothered her day and night. The energy readings in Sector 7 made no sense. According to every plan and record, there was nothing in that area but solid plating. Still, her scanners showed massive energy usage coming from behind the wall. She moved slowly down the narrow passage, the light from her scanner painting the surface in a blue glow. Her braids swung lightly as she bent close to study the panels. Every section looked the same, but the readings grew stronger with every step. Nira's heart beat faster. She had the feeling that once she uncovered the source, her life would never return to normal. She stopped in front of what looked like an ordinary wall. The scanner beeped wildly, insisting on what her eyes could not see. She ran her fingers along the cold metal, searching for some sign, some crack in the smooth design. Then, at last, she found it, an almost invisible seam. Her pulse quickened. Using her codes, she carefully keyed a sequence into her wrist pad. For a moment, nothing happened. Then came the hiss of locks releasing. The wall shifted aside with a whisper, revealing a hidden passage that no blueprint had ever shown. The corridor beyond was narrow and strange. Red emergency lights glowed softly, casting uneasy shadows that seemed to move on their own. The air felt different here, heavy and charged. Nira checked her oxygen, then stepped inside. Each footstep echoed as if the walls themselves were listening. The passage bent and opened into a massive chamber, and what she saw stole her breath. The walls were made of crystal, tall and alive with a strange energy. They pulsed in rhythm, glowing faintly, point, filling the space with a low hum that vibrated in her bones. And in the very center was a sight more powerful than any dream. A cage of light suspended in the air, built of pure energy, holding something beyond imagination. Inside the cage hung a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. It was huge, with the body of a great feline, the wings of an eagle, and the head of a dragon. Scales shimmered between silver and deep violet, glowing as if lit from within. Even trapped, it radiated strength and power. Nira could not look away, but what truly captured her were its eyes, golden, ancient, and filled with pain so deep it seemed to reach into her very soul. She gasped when she saw tears fall from those great eyes. Each tear turned into crystal before touching the cage, shattering softly against the field. A living being was crying, trapped here, hidden for who knew how long. Nira's voice was almost a whisper. "Who are you?" The creature raised its head slowly, eyes narrowing with surprise. When it spoke, its voice filled the chamber like distant thunder, deep and sorrowful. "I am Kale of the Star Currents. I am the last of the celestial griffins. I have been prisoner here for 300 years. Nira almost dropped her scanner. 300 years. Impossible. The station was only 50 years old. Confusion filled her, but Kale continued. This prison was here long before your miners built their ring. The Stellar Council placed me inside and hid their crime beneath your steel. Nira's thoughts raced. The Council? Why would they imprison such a being? She looked back at the glowing field, at the tears that would not stop. Why would they do this? She asked softly. The Griffin lowered his eyes. Because I loved a human, and because I defended your kind when they wished to erase you. For that, they chose chains. Nira felt the air press heavy around her. Everything she thought she knew about the Council, about humanity's place in the galaxy, began to twist. She reached out a trembling hand, pressing her palm near the field, though it burned faintly. This is wrong, she said. No one deserves this. The golden eye studied her with something like hope. But before he could answer, the sound of footsteps thundered from the hidden corridor. The chamber door opened, and figures stepped inside. Nira turned quickly, heart racing. Her discovery had not gone unnoticed. Warden Morik Kane escorted Nira Vale down the hidden corridor with the calm certainty of a man who believed every step was already planned. 4 guards followed, their rifles steady, their eyes cold. Nira's hands were bound in front of her, but her thoughts were racing faster than her captors could ever imagine. She had seen the truth in that secret chamber. A celestial griffin was imprisoned deep inside the mining ring. And now she knew the Stellar Council's darkest secret. The cell where Kane left her was narrow, metallic, and built for silence. The door sealed with a hiss, leaving her in dim light and recycled air. She sat on the hard bench and pressed her palms together, trying to calm the storm inside her. She was afraid, yes, but stronger than her fear was anger. Anger that such cruelty had been hidden in plain sight. Anger that power had been used to cage something magnificent. Nira paced the small space, counting bolts and mapping the walls in her mind. She was an engineer before anything else, and she looked at every problem as a design waiting to be broken apart. The lock was old. The wiring hummed with lazy rhythm. She could already sense its weak points. But rushing would only mean failure. She needed patience and she needed help. After long hours, the door opened. Nira looked up. Her eyes showed both worry and disappointment. She set a small satchel down on the bench. Nira, what were you thinking? Ro asked in a low voice. Warden Kane says you tried to free some kind of dangerous alien. He says you're risking not only yourself, but the entire crew. Nira shook her head firmly. It's not dangerous, Captain. It's a prisoner. A celestial griffin, trapped for centuries. The Council put him there. They lied to us all. He fought for humanity when we were first discovered, and they punished him for it. He cried, Captain. I saw his tears. Rose studied her carefully, her lips pressed into a thin line. Even if that's true, you cannot fight the Council. Their reach is endless. You could lose everything. Your career, your freedom, even your life. What is freedom worth if I let someone suffer when I could help? Nira replied, her voice steady. I have to try. I can't turn away now. I can fix things. And this is the one thing that needs fixing most of all. For a long moment, Rose said nothing. Then she pushed the satchel closer. The guards confiscated your engineering kit. I told them I needed it for my report. Consider this a mistake in my filing. She gave a small sigh. I am not helping you break the law. I am simply giving back what belongs to you. What you do with it is your choice. When the door sealed again, Nira opened the bag with trembling hands. Her tools were there. The small torque driver, the coil tuner, the micro-welder. She ran her fingers across them like greeting old friends. The weight of them steadied her heart. She sat on the floor and began to plan. The cage she had seen was built on crystalline resonance. She remembered the way the chamber had hummed. each note part of a larger song. If she could match the frequency perfectly and feed it back into the lattice, the crystals might overload. Not a permanent break, but enough to collapse the prison for a few minutes. 4 minutes, maybe less, but enough time to act. She worked through the night, using scraps from her satchel to build a device. The idea was simple: a harmonic disruptor that could sing the same note as the cage, but louder, forcing the structure to unravel. She soldered carefully, adjusted coils, and tested the pitch with her ear pressed close. When the sound was right, it thrummed in her chest like a heartbeat. The finished device fit neatly in her palm. It looked ordinary, but Nira knew it carried the power to change everything. With it, she could silence chains that had sung for centuries. The next challenge was escape. She studied the cell's lock, tracing her fingers along the panel until she found the right point. With a careful twist of wires and a burst of current from her toolkit, the mechanism clicked open. The door slid aside with a whisper. Nira moved into the maintenance shafts, silent as a shadow. She knew these passages better than most of the crew. Ladders, vents, narrow paths that bypassed the main halls, she used them all. Her heart pounded, but her mind stayed sharp. She counted every second, every step, every breath. When she reached Sector 7 again, the hidden panel accepted her codes without protest. The wall slid back to reveal the chamber, glowing softly in its eerie red light. Kale was still there, suspended in the cage, his golden eyes heavy with sorrow. When he saw her, something bright flickered behind the sadness. "You came back," Kale said, his voice deep and weary. Nira lifted the small device. "I told you I could fix anything. This time, I'm fixing your chains." The Griffin's gaze softened. "You risk everything for a stranger." Nira stepped closer, her hand steady now. "You're not a stranger. You're the reason humanity still has a place in the stars, and no hero belongs in a cage." The chamber hummed louder, as if the crystals themselves sensed what was about to happen. Behind her, footsteps echoed faintly in the corridor. Time was running out. Nira pressed her palm to the control pillar and clipped the disruptor into place. The chains that had sung for centuries trembled as the first note of freedom began to rise. The disruptor in Nira Vale's hand began to hum. The chamber walls pulsed brighter, their crystal surfaces vibrating with new energy. Then the sound deepened, the resonance shifting into a tone that felt heavy in her chest. The tage of light surrounding Kale shimmered, lines of force unraveling like a song losing its rhythm. With a sharp crack, the energy threads broke apart. Kale dropped to the floor of the chamber, his massive wings folding tight to absorb the fall. For a moment, he stayed down, his chest rising and falling as if every breath was a battle. Then, slowly, the Griffin lifted his head. Golden eyes blazed with strength not seen for centuries. His wings stretched wide, brushing the crystal walls. Dot. And the entire chamber shook as though it recognized his freedom. Nira's heart raced. "We have 4 minutes," she said, her voice urgent. "Maybe less." Alarms screamed across the mining ring. Red lights pulsed in warning, and the air filled with the sharp echo of sirens. Heavy boots thundered down the hidden corridor. Warden Morik Kane appeared with a squad of armed guards, his expression calm and cruel. He raised his weapon. "Stand down, engineer. You've just broken the law of the council. The penalty is simple: death for both of you." Nira stepped in front of Kale without hesitation. "He is not a criminal. He's a protector, and I won't let you keep him in chains." Kane's lips curved into a cold smile. "Do you really think you can stop us? Even if you manage to escape this chamber, the council's warships wait in orbit. You have no chance." Before Nira could reply, Kale's voice filled the space like rolling thunder. "You will not harm her." The sound shook the air, and even the guards faltered for a breath. It was the voice of an ancient force, the sound of storms remembered in old stories. Nira used that moment. She pulled the Griffin toward the exit, her eyes scanning for any path that wasn't already blocked. Together, they ran through the corridors of the station. Klaxons wailed. Panels sparked. Soldiers shouted orders behind them. When they reached the shuttle bay, the heavy doors were sealed. Kane had locked it down. Nira's hands flew across the console. Come on, she whispered, feeding in override codes she herself had written months before. With a hiss, the doors slid open, revealing Kane's sleek personal shuttle resting on the deck. The guards burst into the bay behind them. Blaster fire lit the air, bolts striking walls and scattering sparks. Kale leapt forward, wings shielding Nira. As he roared with fury, the sound made the crystal walls sing and forced the guards back for a breath. Give in, Nira shouted. She raced up the ramp into the shuttle, slamming controls with practiced precision. The engines came to life, humming with power. Kale bounded in behind her, crouching low in the cargo hold, his scales scorched from stray blasts. Are you hurt? She asked. Nothing that will not heal, Kale answered, his voice steady though his body trembled with exhaustion. Nira gritted her teeth. The bay shields shimmered in front of them, but she knew this system well. She tapped a final code, bypassing the lock. The shields dissolved, and the shuttle shot out into the star-specked dark. For 2 precious breaths, there was silence. Then space rippled ahead. Council warships emerged from hyperspace, their massive hulls blotting out the stars. A cold voice filled the shuttle. This is Commander Brantier of the Stellar Council Fleet. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Nira's stomach dropped. The shuttle was fast, but not fast enough to outrun warships. They were surrounded. Her hands tightened on the controls. I can't escape them, she whispered. Kale stepped forward, his golden eyes steady on hers. Then we do not run. Open the rear doors. Nira turned, shocked. You'll be killed. This is open space. His gaze softened. I am a creature of the void. Space is my birthright. I can fight them. You must fly to safety. Tears stung her eyes. I won't leave you. His wings folded close, and he lowered his head until his brow touched hers. In 3 centuries, there are no coming back from you. End of 2, finish. Add the pair, and he will still help you can. I have loved only twice. Wings stretched across the stars, glowing with starlight. The council ships fired, beams of energy tearing through space. Kale dodged and weaved, striking with claws that ripped through armored hulls as though they were paper. His roar echoed in silence, a wave of power that shook enemy ships apart. Nira watched from the cockpit, her hands gripping the controls with trembling strength. She could not look away as Kale blazed like a living constellation, fighting alone against an entire fleet. Ship after ship fell, burning wrecks drifting into the void. But the brilliance of Kale's light began to fade. Every strike cost him. Every roar pulled strength from wounds too deep to heal. Nira guided the shuttle close, tears blurring her vision. Come back, she whispered. Please come back. Gravity nets extended, pulling his fading form inside. He collapsed onto the floor, his body smaller now, his light dim, but his eyes still warm. Did we win? Kale asked, his voice barely a, Did we win? Nira pressed her hand to his scales, her heart breaking with relief. Yes, we won. The alarms of the shuttle beeped with warning, reminding her the council would not give up. But for this moment, in this fragile silence, they had claimed 4 minutes of sky. The shuttle sped through hyperspace, leaving broken fragments of council warships behind. Inside the small vessel, Nira Vale sat at the controls, her eyes fixed on the endless tunnel of light. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced with fear and hope. Behind her, Kale, the celestial griffin, rested in the cargo hold. His scales were dim, his breathing shallow, but his golden eyes still carried strength. For 3 days, the ship traveled beyond known star maps, far past the rim of Council authority. During that time, Nira cared for Kale as best she could. She cleaned his wounds, patched his scorched scales, and whispered quiet words meant more for herself than for him. Sometimes, when he was strong enough to speak, he told her stories of skies older than human memory. He spoke of songs his people once sang together, songs that could bend winds, shift rivers, and calm storms. Nira listened with wide eyes, her imagination alive with pictures of a universe richer than any mining station could show. She shared her own dreams in return. She told him of her wish to build networks of energy stations that gave power freely, of machines that healed rather than harmed, of bridges that connected instead of divided. Their voices filled the shuttle, weaving a bond stronger than chains and stronger than silence. But beyond their conversations, the danger never left her thoughts. The Council would never forgive what she had done. They would come after her, and they would hunt Kale until the stars themselves grew cold. She tightened her grip on the controls each time alarms flickered, knowing pursuit could still find them. At last, the coordinates Kale had whispered appeared on her screen. Ahead stretched a world hidden beyond the galactic rim. It was unlike anything Nira had seen before. Floating islands hovered above a sea of mist, connected by shining bridges of crystal light. Waterfalls poured from one island to another, suspended in the air without falling to the ground. Griffins soared through the skies, their wings catching colors that shifted like rainbows caught in storm clouds. Nira gasped softly. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Kale lifted his head, weak but smiling. "Home," he said, the single word heavy with memory and longing. As the shuttle descended, a circle of griffins rose to meet them. Their wings gleamed with silver, bronze, and gold. Their eyes studied the small vessel with caution. One griffin, older than the rest, stepped forward. His scales glowed like moonlight, and his voice carried the weight of ages. "Who returns to us from the long silence?" the elder asked. Kale stood with difficulty, his wings folding close. "It is I, Kale of the Star Currents. I was lost, but I am not lost anymore." The elder's golden eyes filled with tears. "We thought the void had claimed you, my son." He lowered his head in greeting. "You have come home." Nira stepped forward uncertainly, her boots touching the crystal platform. The griffin's eyes turned to her, curious but not unkind. Kale spoke again, his voice steady. "This human is the reason I stand here now. She broke the chains the Council forged. She risked everything to bring me back." The elder griffin bowed his great head toward her. "Then she is welcome among us. The fires of our home burn for her as well." Nira felt her chest tighten. She had come so far, through fear, battle, and endless risk. Yet standing here felt like more than survival. It felt like a beginning. Kale leaned close, his voice softer now. "The Council will not stop hunting. But here, the old laws still hold. Their power does not reach this place. And together, perhaps, we can build something greater than even they fear." Nira looked at the sky above, where griffins soared freely, unchained. She imagined stations powered by crystal light, bridges of trust stretching across the stars, and a galaxy where freedom was not hidden in secret chambers. She turned to Kale, meeting his golden eyes. "Then we build," she said simply. And in that moment, surrounded by griffins and standing on a world untouched by the Council, Nira felt hope rise like the dawn. The journey that had begun with whispers in a metal wall had led here, to a place where chains no longer sang and where new stories waited to be written. For the first time, Nira understood that freedom was not just escape. Freedom was creation. Freedom was building a future worth fighting for. The old laws waited here, older than the Council, stronger than fear. And as Nira and Kale stepped forward together, the sky opened wide to welcome them.